The doors of the council chamber flew open with a crash that echoed through the vast hall. Every head turned toward the entrance, where an old Draxian stood breathing heavily. His gray scales were cracked with age, and deep scars ran across the left side of his face. He wore the faded uniform of a soldier who had not served in decades. "You must listen to me," he said, his voice rough but loud enough to fill the chamber. High Chancellor Miles rose from his seat at the center of the curved table, where the 12 elder species sat in judgment over the galaxy. His silver robes flowed around him as he gestured to the guards. "Remove this person," Miles ordered. "This is a closed session." "My name is Vorath Kelm," the old soldier shouted as guards approached him. "I fought in the border wars. I know what you are about to do, and I am telling you, it is a mistake that will cost us everything." The guards grabbed his arms, but Vorath did not struggle. He simply looked at the council members with eyes that had seen too much. Councillor Dreth, a Crethany with deep blue skin and 4 arms, raised one hand. "Wait, let him speak. What harm can the words of one old veteran do?" Miles frowned but nodded slowly. The guards released Vorath and stepped back. Vorath walked forward until he stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the known galaxy. He did not seem afraid. He seemed tired. "I know you are planning to punish the humans for expanding into the core sector," Vorath said. "I know you see them as a minor species, young, weak, barely worth your attention. They have violated 17 treaties," Miles said coldly. "They will be reminded of their place." "Their place," Vorath repeated. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. 60 years ago, I thought I knew their place too. I commanded a battalion of 300 Draxian warriors, the finest soldiers our world had ever produced. We were sent to secure a frozen moon in the outer territories. Intelligence told us a small human squad was there, maybe 20 soldiers. We expected to be done in hours. He paused and touched the scars on his face. It took 9 days. 9 days of fighting in ice and darkness. They did not have better weapons. They did not have more soldiers. They had nothing but their will to survive and their refusal to surrender. "You were beaten by 20 humans?" someone asked from the council table. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Vorath did not react to the laughter. "On the first day, we killed 8 of them. We thought it was almost over. That night, they came into our camp while we slept. They moved through the darkness like ghosts. They killed 40 of my soldiers without making a sound. When we woke, we found the bodies arranged in a circle around our commander's tent." The laughter stopped. "On the 3rd day, we cornered 5 of them in a cave. We sent 50 soldiers to finish them. 2 soldiers came back. The humans had collapsed the cave on themselves and taken the rest with them. We thought they were dead. That night, 3 humans attacked our supply depot. They had dug their way out through solid rock with their bare hands." Vorath looked around the chamber. No one was smiling now. "On the 9th day, I faced the last human myself. He was wounded. He had lost an arm. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts. And when I looked into his eyes, I saw something that I had never seen before. I saw an animal that had decided it would rather die than stop fighting." He stepped closer to the council table. "I won that fight, but I have never forgotten what I saw in his eyes. There was something inside him that was older than civilization. Something that remembered when his kind hunted beasts with sharpened sticks. Something patient and terrible." High Chancellor Miles waved his hand dismissively. "A dramatic story from a traumatized soldier. Humans are emotional creatures from a harsh world. This makes them stubborn, not dangerous. Our fleets outnumber theirs 100 to 1. Numbers do not matter," Vorath said. "I have studied them for 60 years. I have watched how they treat their children, how they build their cities, how they make peace with their enemies. They are capable of great kindness. But when you threaten what they love, the kindness disappears. Something else takes its place. And what is that? Counselor Dreth asked quietly. Vorath turned to look at him. I do not have a word for it in my language. The humans call it many things. Fury, rage, wrath, but those words are too small. It is more like a sickness that spreads through them. One human becomes 100. 100 becomes 1,000,000. And they do not stop until the threat is gone or they are all dead. Enough, Meles declared. We have heard your warning, veteran. It has been noted. Now leave us to our work. Vorath stood still for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. You will not listen. I knew you would not. But I had to try. He turned toward the door, then stopped. You see their smiles and think them soft. I saw their eyes when they were cornered. There is something broken inside them. Something ancient and patient. When you wake it up, you will wish you had listened to a mad old soldier. He walked out of the chamber without looking back. High Chancellor Meles shook his head. The poor creature has clearly lost his mind. Now, let us continue. The human expansion cannot be tolerated. I propose we send a fleet to the Corvus sector to enforce our sanctions. The vote was quick. 11 of the 12 council members agreed. Only Counselor Dreth abstained. In the corner of the chamber, far from the table of power, sat the delegations of the younger species. Among them was a single human. Ambassador Jack Cole was a man in his middle years with gray hair at his temples and calm brown eyes. He had watched the entire scene without speaking, without moving, without any expression on his face. When the vote was finished, he simply stood up, straightened his jacket, and walked out of the chamber. No one noticed the way his hands had tightened into fists. No one saw the cold light that had entered his eyes, but if Vorath had been there to see it, he would have recognized it immediately. It was the same look he had seen on that frozen moon 60 years ago. The look of something patient and terrible waking up. 3 months passed. On the human colony world of New Haven, the morning sun rose over green hills and small towns that had taken generations to build. Children walked to school. Farmers worked their fields. It was a peaceful world, far from the politics of the Galactic Council. Commander Laura Holt stood at the window of the military base and watched the sky. She was a woman of 42 years with short dark hair and the kind of face that showed she had seen trouble before. Today, she expected to see more. Commander, said a young officer behind her, the fleet has arrived. Laura did not turn around. How many? 40 warships, ma'am. Velanthe configuration. 40 warships. For a colony of 200,000 people, protected by a single defense station and 3 patrol ships. It was not a show of force. It was a message. We can crush you whenever we want. The communication screen on her desk lit up. The face of a Velanthe admiral appeared. He had pale blue skin and eyes that looked at her like she was an insect. I am Admiral Sirith of the Galactic Council Enforcement Fleet, he said. You are in violation of 17 treaties regarding territorial expansion. You have 72 hours to evacuate this world. After that time, any humans remaining will be removed by force. Lavra kept her voice steady. This colony has existed for 3 generations. These people have nowhere else to go. That is not my concern. 72 hours. The screen went dark. Lara turned to her officer. Get me a line to Earth Command, and send a message to every settlement on the planet. Tell them what is happening. The next 3 days were chaos. People packed what they could. Families argued about whether to stay or go. Some said the council was bluffing. Others said they should fight. Most were simply afraid. Danny Marsh was 23 years old and had lived on New Haven his entire life. He ran supply routes between the small towns, driving a beat-up transport truck that had belonged to his father. When the evacuation order came, he volunteered to help move people to the spaceport. On the second day, he was driving a group of families when he saw something in the sky. A Volante patrol ship was following a civilian transport that was trying to leave the planet early. "What are they doing?" asked an old woman in the back of his truck. Danny stopped the vehicle and watched. The patrol ship flew closer to the transport. Then there was a flash of light, and the transport exploded. Pieces of metal and fire rained down from the sky. The old woman screamed. Children started crying. Danny just stared, unable to move. 83 people had been on that transport. Families, children, people who were just trying to do what the council had ordered. And the council had killed them anyway. Danny drove to the nearest military outpost as fast as he could. When he arrived, he found Commander Lara Holt standing outside, her face pale with anger. "I have the footage," Danny said, showing her his personal recording device. "I got everything." Lara took the device. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was cold and steady. "The council will try to hide this. They will say it was an accident. They will say we attacked first. So what do we do?" Lara looked at him. Then she looked at the sky where smoke was still rising. "We show everyone," she said. Within hours, the footage was broadcast on every galactic channel. Every world in the Council's domain saw the Volante ship fire on an unarmed civilian transport. They saw the explosion. They heard the screams. And they heard Commander Lara Holt's voice, calm and clear. "This is what the Galactic Council calls justice. This is what they do to those who cannot fight back. Remember this. Remember what they are." On the Council homeworld of Vareth Prime, the broadcast caused an uproar. Council Dreth demanded an explanation. High Chancellor Mayles claimed the footage was fake, then claimed it was an accident, then claimed the transport had been carrying weapons. No one believed him. In a small apartment on the edge of the capital city, Vareth Kelm watched the footage on his screen. He watched it 3 times. Then he stood up slowly, his old bones aching, and walked to a closet he had not opened in years. Inside was his combat armor. It was old and worn, but it still fit. He put it on piece by piece, feeling the weight of it settle on his shoulders like an old friend. "They did not listen," he said to the empty room. "Now they will learn." He left his apartment and disappeared into the night. On Vareth Prime, in the human embassy, Ambassador Jack Cole was packing a small bag. His staff watched him with worried eyes. "Sir, where are you going?" asked his assistant. "Home," Jack said. He looked at the young man with an expression that was almost sad. "Tell the council I am no longer interested in diplomacy. Tell them I tried to warn them. Tell them they had their chance." "Sir, what does that mean?" Jack Cole picked up his bag and walked toward the door. He stopped and looked back one last time. "It means the talking is over." He left without another word. By the time anyone thought to stop him, he was already gone. Back on New Haven, the 72 hours ended. Admiral Serath appeared on every screen on the planet. "Your time has expired. Evacuation ships will land at designated points. Anyone who resists will be treated as hostile. This is your final warning." Commander Lara Holt broadcast her own message to every human on the planet. "To anyone who can hear me, they killed our people. They burned our ships. They gave us no choice but to run or die. But I am not running. If anyone wants to stand with me, come to the defense base. If anyone wants to run, I understand. But I will not let them take our home without a fight." She did not know how many would come. She expected a few dozen soldiers. Maybe some veterans. By morning, 10,000 people stood outside her base. Farmers with hunting rifles, miners with explosives, mothers and fathers with whatever weapons they could find, They did not come to run. They came to fight. The Galactic Council expected humans to beg. They expected desperate messages asking for mercy, for more time, for negotiations. They expected fear. Instead, they got silence. For 5 days after the massacre at New Haven, no human government sent a single message to the Council. No ambassadors appeared. No diplomats called. It was as if the entire human species had simply stopped talking. High Chancellor Maylis told the Council this was a good sign. They are afraid, he said. They know they cannot win. They are probably fighting among themselves about what to do. Councillor Dreth was not so sure. He had spent the last several days reading old reports about humanity. Reports that had been buried in archives. Reports that told stories very different from what the Council believed. Silence is not always fear, Dreth said quietly. Sometimes it means something else is happening. He was right. Across human space, something was happening. Something that had been prepared for 200 years. On Earth, Admiral Nate Perry stood in the command center of the First Fleet. He was 60 years old, with white hair and a face like carved stone. He had fought in the Martian Rebellion 30 years ago, when human colonies had turned against each other. He knew what war looked like. He knew what it cost, and he knew what had to be done. "All ships report ready, sir," said his second-in-command. "How many?" 72 warships. Another 100 support vessels. And the reserves are activating across all colonies. Perry nodded slowly. "What about the cargo ships?" His second-in-command smiled grimly. "They are ready too." Throughout human space, something strange was happening. Cargo ships that had carried grain and machinery for decades were opening hidden compartments. Weapon systems that had been installed in secret were coming online. Civilian stations that had always seemed harmless were revealing defense batteries that no one had ever seen. The humans had been preparing for this day since they first made contact with the galaxy. They had smiled and traded and made friends. But they had never stopped watching. Never stopped building. Never stopped getting ready for the moment when someone would try to take everything from them. On New Haven, Dr. Beth Sawyer worked in the emergency shelter that had been set up for refugees. She was a xenobiologist who had spent 20 years studying alien species. She understood how they thought, how they felt, what they feared. Commander Laura Holt found her treating a wounded child. "Dr. Sawyer, I need you to explain something to me." Beth finished bandaging the child's arm and sent her to her parents. Then she turned to Laura. "What do you need to know? Why doesn't the Council understand? Why do they keep pushing when they can see we are fighting back?" Beth sighed and sat down on a crate. She looked very tired. "Because they cannot imagine what we really are," she said. "The elder species evolved on peaceful worlds. Worlds with gentle climates and plenty of food. They had millions of years to develop their civilizations slowly and carefully. They see conflict as a failure, a mistake, something to be avoided. And humans? We evolved on a death world." Beth smiled sadly. "Earth kills everything that lives on it. Ice ages, volcanoes, plagues, predators everywhere. We did not become intelligent because life was easy. We became intelligent because everything was trying to kill us, and we refused to die." She stood up and looked out the window at the people gathering outside. "The Council thinks we will break because we are young and weak. They do not understand that we have been breaking and rebuilding ourselves for 1,000,000 years. Every time something tried to destroy us, we came back stronger. It is not something we choose. It is something we are." Far away, on a hidden asteroid in the deep black between stars, Varth Keln arrived at a place that officially did not exist. It was called The Gathering, and it had been meeting in secret for decades. When he entered the main chamber, he found 50 beings waiting for him. They came from 8 different species. Some were soldiers, Some were scientists. Some were ordinary people who had simply been in the wrong place at the wrong time. They called themselves the Witnesses. And they all had one thing in common. They had survived encounters with humans. Crethany with a mechanical arm was the first to greet him. "Vorath, we heard about your speech to the council. We heard they did not listen." "They never listen," Vorath said. "That is why we are here." One by one, the witnesses shared their stories. The Lanthy merchant told of being captured by pirates and rescued by a human. Freighter crew who fought through impossible odds to save strangers. Draxian scientists told of an expedition that went wrong on a hostile planet. The human team members had carried the wounded for 40 days through a poisonous jungle, losing 3 of their own, but refusing to leave anyone behind. A Theran engineer told of a reactor failure on a space station. A human technician had sealed himself inside the radiation zone to make repairs, knowing it would kill him, so that 2,000 people could escape. "They are not like us," the Theran said quietly. "They value things we do not understand. They will die for people they have never met. They will sacrifice everything for an idea, a principle, a promise." Vorath listened to every story. When they were finished, he stood before them. "The council is about to learn what we already know, but it may be too late for them. We must go to Vareth Prime. We must make them see the truth before everything is destroyed. Will they listen to us?" The Crethany asked. "Probably not, but we have to try." On New Haven, Admiral Sirith watched his forces prepare for the ground invasion. He was confident. His fleet was overwhelming. His soldiers were well trained. The humans had nothing but farmers and children. This would be easy dot above him. In the vast darkness of space, Admiral Nate Perry's fleet did not head toward New Haven. Instead, they set a course directly for Vareth Prime. The council had made a mistake. They had thought this was about one small colony. They were about to learn that when you hurt humanity, all of humanity hurts you back. The Volanthi dropships descended on New Haven like metal rain. Thousands of soldiers in gleaming armor landed in the fields outside the main settlements. Admiral Sirith watched from orbit, certain that this would be finished by sunset. He was wrong. Sergeant Amy Cross crouched behind a broken wall with her squad of 12 Marines. They had been assigned to defend the central hospital, where 300 wounded civilians waited for evacuation that would never come. "How many?" asked one of her soldiers, a young man barely out of training. Amy looked through her scope. "About 200 coming this way. Maybe more. 12 against 200? Amy checked her weapon and smiled grimly. "Then it is a fair fight." The first wave of Volanthi soldiers approached the hospital with confidence. They had better weapons, better armor, and overwhelming numbers. They expected the humans to surrender or run. Instead, the humans opened fire from every window, every rooftop, every shadow. The Volanthi formation scattered. Soldiers fell. Officers screamed orders that no one could follow. The battle for the hospital lasted 18 hours. 12 Marines held off an entire battalion. They fought room by room, floor by floor. When they ran out of ammunition, they used knives. When their weapons broke, they used their hands. When soldiers fell, others took their place. By the end, only 4 of Amy's squad remained standing. But the hospital was still in human hands, and every civilian inside had been evacuated through tunnels that the Volanthi never knew existed across the planet. Similar stories played out. Farmers who had never held a weapon stood against trained soldiers. Miners collapsed tunnels on enemy forces and dug their way out through solid rock. Teachers and doctors and shopkeepers became fighters overnight. Lieutenant Corvus was a young Volanthi officer on his first real mission. He had been told this would be simple. Enforce the evacuation. Relocate the primitives. Go home, a hero. No one had told him about this. He stood in a burning village and watched a human farmer charge directly at a Volanthi combat walker. The machine was 3 times the farmer's height, armed with weapons that could level buildings. The farmer had nothing but a torch. "Stop!" Corvus shouted. "You will die!" The farmer did not stop. He ran straight at the walker, threw his torch into an intake vent, and was crushed under the machine's feet a moment later. The walker exploded 30 seconds later. In the confusion that followed, 27 children escaped into the forest. Corvus stood frozen, staring at the farmer's broken body. He had sacrificed everything for children who were not even his own. He had traded his life for theirs without hesitation. What kind of species did this? In orbit, Admiral Sirith was receiving reports from all over the planet. Casualties were mounting. Progress was slower than expected. The humans were not surrendering. "Increase bombardment of residential areas," he ordered. "If they will not leave their homes, we will destroy their homes." Before he could give the final order, alarms began screaming throughout his flagship. "Admiral!" Ships dropping out of hyperspace. Directly above Verith Prime. Sirith's blood went cold. "What? How many?" 72 warships. Human configuration. On Verith Prime, panic erupted. The human fleet had appeared without warning, bypassing all defense networks, all early warning systems. They hung in orbit like wolves watching sheep. High Chancellor Miles demanded immediate contact. When Admiral Nate Perry's face appeared on his screen, Melissa's voice shook with fury. "This is an act of war. You attack our homeworld?" "We have not attacked anything," Perry said calmly. "Yet, we are simply here to talk. You cannot threaten the Council." "I am not threatening anyone, Chancellor. I am asking you to recall your forces from New Haven. That is all." Meles laughed, but there was fear in his eyes. "You think you can dictate terms to us? We have 1,000 ships. You have less than 100. "That is true," Perry admitted. "But those 1,000 ships are scattered across your territory. And right now, my ships are the only things between your capital and a very bad day. You would not dare. If you fire on us, every species in the galaxy will unite against you." Perry leaned forward. His voice did not change, but something in his eyes made Meles take a step back. "You killed 83 civilians on a transport that was following your orders. You killed them for no reason, except to show that you could. And you think we are worried about what the galaxy thinks of us?" The communication screen flickered. Another face appeared. Ambassador Jack Cole, who had disappeared from Verith Prime days ago. "Chancellor, I tried to tell you. I tried to make you understand. But you would not listen. So now I will show you instead." His broadcast went out to every world in the Council's domain. He showed the footage of the massacre. He showed the invasion of New Haven. He showed children running from soldiers, farmers dying to protect their families, hospitals being bombed. Then he asked one question. "Is this the peace you promised your people?" On Verith Prime, the broadcast played on every screen in every city. People watched in horror. They had been told humans were dangerous criminals who violated treaties. They had not been told about the children. They had not been told about the massacre. In the council chambers, Councillor Dreth stood up. "This has gone far enough," he said. "I call for an immediate ceasefire and the recall of all forces from human territory." "You cannot do that," Meles shouted. "I am the High Chancellor, and I am calling for a vote of no confidence." Before Meles could respond, the doors of the chamber opened. Voreth Keln walked in, followed by 50 beings from 8 different species. "My name is Voreth Keln," he said, "and these are the witnesses. We have something to say." Voreth Keln stood in the center of the council chamber, surrounded by beings from across the galaxy. The witnesses stood behind him, their faces marked by scars and memories that would never fade. Above them, human warships hung in orbit like a silent promise. "You know me as a mad old soldier," Vareth said. "You dismissed my warning. You called me broken. Perhaps you were right. Perhaps I am broken. But I was broken by the truth, and now you will hear it." He gestured to the witnesses. One by one, they stepped forward and told their stories. A Theran engineer told of a human who had died to save a space station full of strangers. Died to save a space station full of strangers. Draxian scientists told of humans who had carried the wounded for 40 days rather than leave anyone behind. A Crethany merchant told of a human freighter crew who had fought pirates to rescue people they had never. A Volante diplomat told of a human doctor who had worked without sleep for 9 days to cure a plague on an alien world. Even though the disease could not hurt humans, the council listened in silence. Even Meles could not find words to interrupt. When the stories were finished, Vareth spoke again. "You think humans are primitive. You think they are weak because they are young. You are wrong. They are not weak. They are simply choosing not to be strong. Every day, they wake up and decide to be kind. They build instead of destroy. They heal instead of harm. They reach out their hands in friendship instead of raising them in violence." He stepped closer to the council table. "But when you hurt them, when you hurt the people they love, they stop choosing kindness. They become something else. Something that remembers what it took to survive on a world that tried to kill them every day for 1,000,000 years. And when that thing wakes up, it does not stop. It does not negotiate. It does not care about treaties or politics or power. It only knows how to protect what it loves." He pointed at the ceiling, at the ships floating above them. "Right now, Admiral Perry could destroy this city. He could burn your capital to ash. He has the power. He has the reason. But he's not firing. Do you know why?" No one answered. Because humans do not want to rule the galaxy. They do not want to conquer. They do not want revenge. They just want to be left alone to live their lives in peace. That is all they have ever wanted. On New Haven, the battle had reached its final moment. Admiral Sirith stood on his flagship, his hand hovering over the controls for orbital bombardment. One command would end the resistance. One command would turn the planet into a graveyard. Lieutenant Corvus stood behind him, surrounded by other junior officers. He had seen what humans were willing to sacrifice. He had watched that farmer die for children he did not know. He could not forget the look in the man's eyes. "Admiral," Corvus said quietly, "we should wait for orders from the council." "I have my orders," Sirith snapped. "We are to pacify this world by any means necessary. By killing everyone on it?" Sirith turned to face him. "They are primitives. Their lives mean nothing. That farmer who destroyed the walker, he died to save children. How can you say his life meant nothing?" "Silence. You are a soldier. You follow orders." Corvus looked at the other officers around him. He saw the doubt in their eyes. The shame. They had all seen things they could not forget. "No," Corvus said. "I will not follow this order. I do not think I am alone." One by one, the other officers stepped forward to stand with him. They did not draw weapons. They did not threaten. They simply refused. Sirith's face twisted with rage. He reached for the controls himself. Before he could touch them, his own crew restrained him. Officers he had commanded for years held his arms and pulled him away from the console. "This is mutiny," Sirith screamed. "I will have you all executed." "Perhaps," Corvus said, "but we will not help you murder children." On Vareth Prime, the council voted. It was not even close. 11 voices called for Meles to be removed from power. 11 voices called for an immediate ceasefire. 11 voices called for peace. Councillor Dreth became the new High Chancellor. His first order was to recall all forces from human territory. His second order was to begin negotiations for a permanent treaty. When the session ended, Dreth asked to meet with Ambassador Jack Cole alone. They sat in a small room far from the great chamber, two tired beings trying to understand each other. "I have to ask," Dreth said. "Your fleet could have destroyed us. You had every right after what we did. Why did you hold back?" Jack Cole was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was soft. "Because we do not want to be monsters. We have seen what happens when people choose revenge over mercy. We have done terrible things to each other throughout our history. We know how easy it is to become the thing you hate." He leaned forward. "We did not come here to conquer. We came here to make you understand. Hurt us, and we will hurt you back. Threaten our children, and we will burn the stars to protect them. But give us peace, and we will give you everything we have. Knowledge, technology, friendship. We just want to live in this galaxy alongside everyone else. We do not want to rule it." Dreth nodded slowly. "And if we had not listened? If we had continued the attack?" Jack Cole's expression did not change, but something flickered in his eyes. Something old and cold and patient. "Then we would have done what we had to do. And we would have hated ourselves for it. But we would have done it anyway." Dreth understood. This was not a threat. It was simply the truth. Months later, Varth Kelm returned to his home on Draxia. He was tired. His body ached. But for the first time in 60 years, his mind was at peace. They had listened. Finally, they had listened. On New Haven, Commander Lara Holt watched the rebuilding begin. Homes rose from the ashes. Children played in streets that had been battlegrounds. The scars would remain, but the people would heal. Danny Marsh brought supplies to the construction sites, just as he always had. When someone thanked him for his help during the invasion, he just shrugged. "We take care of each other," he said. "That is what we do." In the Council archives on Vareth Prime, Vareth's original testimony from 60 years ago was finally declassified. Someone had added a note at the bottom of the file. It read simply, "He was right." And across the galaxy, beings of 100 different species began to tell stories about the humans. Not stories of monsters or primitives or dangerous animals. Stories of people who would die for strangers. People who chose kindness when they could have chosen cruelty. People who wanted nothing more than to live in peace, but would fight to the last breath to protect what they loved. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was part of it now. Not as conquerors, not as enemies, just as neighbors who happened to come from a world that had tried very hard to kill them and had failed.